This is the All In Poker Podcast with Bad Beat Bryce and Ryan the Rock. How are you doing today, Ryan?
There we go. Yeah, that sounded much better. I'm doing very well, Bryce. Thank you very much for asking. I appreciate it. It's good to be back after our little hiatus.
Yeah, we did have a few weeks off there. Was that about 3 weeks off? That's the longest break we've had since the inception of the podcast.
Yeah, we finally, this podcast was born out of the pandemic, and the pandemic was incredibly convenient for us in order to do this because we didn't have a lot else going on. But now coming out of the pandemic, like work's picked up for me and for you. You're hitting the ground running with poker stuff. So, for me, I have an exciting journey. Next week, I'm going up to New Hampshire to play at the stomping grounds of the one, the only Rampage Poker at Boston Billiards Club. So I'm really, really excited to see that card room. I've only really ever played in casinos and that one place at Derby Lane. So I'm really interested to see what this card room atmosphere is like, where it's just like, a dedicated basically to poker and a little bit to pool.
I wouldn't really say it's that different of an environment. Poker is roped off from the other stuff. Yeah, when you lose a session, you can't go and punt in the pits, but it's not like you do that anyway. But yeah. I wouldn't say it's fair. Too different. But yeah. How would you feel? How do you think that you being in the live grind again has been compared to online? Because obviously, was there much of an adjustment period for you, or has it been pretty smooth?
Yeah, no, you've been hearing about it a lot, where I think the greatest difference for me between online and live is that I'm struggling with all of the variables that go on in multi-way pots. Because in live, you find yourself in a lot more scenarios where you're going, 4 or 5 ways, or really 3, 4, 5 ways, far more often than you are online, where usually you're, if you're going 3 ways, that's pretty much as big as it gets. Like 4-way, 5-way pots are pretty, not standard. So navigating those pots has been probably the most difficult thing for me because I really struggle with how to size and what hands, I struggle with evaluating where my value is, you know what I'm saying? Like these multi-way pods.
I think it's more than that. I think it's more not even like where your value is and the strength of your hand. I think you conceptually have difficulties knowing when to c-bet based on how many people are in the pot, given the board textures. And I think that just comes with both studying as well as just putting in the hours. And while you've put in a decent volume online, you absolutely haven't put that many hours live. And also, I mean, you haven't seen that many hands, to be honest. Yeah, you've studied a decent bit, whatever, but like you've read the books, but like you haven't actually put in the thousands of hands required to understand different board textures and all these different situations. But it sounds like you do know the necessary adjustments that you need to make, such as just like sizing up pre-flop so that we're not going 5 ways to a flop. To answer my own question, I guess, about how my live grind has been, obviously I came back a lot sooner than you did. I don't even know how long it's been, man. The months have blurred. Probably 6-7 months ago I came. I definitely didn't have that fear of just being around people that we talked about that you had a little bit. So that was interesting. But I think tournament poker, I've obviously been playing a lot more tournaments as I went out there for the Tampa series. I played the WPT, Hollywood,
casually final tabled one of the biggest tournament, the biggest tournament at the time in Texas history.
Oh, no. I'm not even talking about that tournament. I thought you were trolling and talking about my Derby Lane final table. I was like, dude,
gassing you up out here right now. Okay.
Yeah, no, that was good. Time I was putting in like 60, 70 hour weeks, like stupid amount. So it was good. Last week I was out in Colorado to get some rest, and yeah, I'm ready to gear up for the World Series. Going to go out for that. Actually going to play some bracelet events at the end of the month. Going out to Jersey, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, definitely excited for tournaments. The itch has just gotten worse and worse, and I'm turning more into a tournament player. Obviously, cash is the bread and butter, but definitely getting after the tournament grind. And we have an amazing tournament player today. I'll wait to interview.
Yeah. So without further ado, I'll get this thing kicked off. So this week on the All In Poker podcast, we are featuring another fantastic member of the poker community. Alex Fitzgerald has been a professional poker player since he was 18 years old, 2006, collecting over $3 million in online tournament winnings and over $600,000 in live tournament winnings. In addition to his success on the felt, Alex wrote 2 books, Exploitative Play in Live Poker and The Myth of Poker Talent, created his own coaching site named after his online poker tab, AssassinatoPoker.com, and partnered with Jonathan Little on several books and poker coaching content. We are unbelievably thankful to have him on the show. And without further ado, let's welcome Alex Fitzgerald to the podcast.
Hey guys, happy to be here.
Welcome,
Thanks
Alex.
for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Excited to ask you some questions.
Yeah.
So I want to get this kicked off. So, I mean, this is kind of funny because we were talking about this. Your arm is in your wrist is in a brace.
Oh yeah.
Years and years of grind. And one of the really interesting things about you is that poker has truly been your one profession in life. You didn't do something first and then come to poker. From 18 on, your main source of income was poker. How has your passion for the game changed at all over your years of play? And are you as excited now as you were when you were 18 to go down and play a session either online or live?
Man, that's a good question. A lot of people don't ask that one. I was lucky enough that I did work before poker. I didn't have a profession, like you said, but I did work other jobs, and those jobs were the type of jobs you don't want to be working. My dad put me to work at 12 on one of his fishing boats. So I was a commercial fisherman too, up in Alaska. I was a security guard. I moved Persian carpets. I was a landscaper and a grunt at Arby's. Yeah. So, I mean, I was couch surfing in high school, so I had to pay bills. But once I started playing poker, I thought, man, this is an air-conditioned room.
It's not a boat.
yeah. I just sit around and wait for aces. I like this. This is nice. But yeah, I guess having that kind of to build into, there was a time, oh man, like the passion about it. I didn't have much of a plan after becoming professional. Just the whole goal was go pro. Don't do these kind of jobs anymore. And then once I got there, I thought to myself, I didn't really know what to do. I wasn't ready for it because nobody ever pictures that part of the dream. So my passion waned at that time. I didn't have goals and I wasn't ready to be the breadwinner in my family. Once I started really pushing myself to get better at the game in all its facets, I really started enjoying it again. I love competing. The more I've taken care of my health, the more I've enjoyed it. But it's just like any relationship. It takes work, you got to put in work. You got to find new things to appreciate. You got to date the game too, right? You got to come up with new angles. You got to see things. Yeah.
That's a good analogy. I really like that.
I'm glad you like that, man.
For sure. My first question for you is, there seems to be players who tend to deviate towards two different camps, the GTO players and the exploitative players, such as the Antonio Esfandiaris, Matt Berkeys, etc. You assert that some experienced players behave in a predictable way that hurts their profitability. Why do you think it is a mistake to be strictly GTO in poker?
I wouldn't say that. Let me try to get specific as I can. I think all of us, if we're being perfectly honest, get into bad habits that someone could exploit.
Yeah.
There's not a GTO player alive that doesn't exploit certain players. If you got a guy that's never going to fold, just value bet him to death and you don't really need to balance. Now, obviously that makes you exploitable, but if he's drunk because he just wandered out of a nightclub and he's at the Venetian, it doesn't really matter. And I think even the GTO players would tell you, oh yeah, on that point, I don't balance, but most GTO players would tell you that you can use GTO to understand when to exploit others. But it's super important when you're playing unknown regs and this is what I struggle with, to have a GTO game. That's why I work with friends of mine who understand GTO and GTO coaches, because like if you're playing cash games, even like 100 NL, if you're playing on the big .com sites or something like that, people are going to turn pairs into bluffs. So you better know, I got to defend exactly this. If I think he's running this many bluffs like he should be, and I better just hit the call button and see what happens. Because if you don't have that, you might be overfolding a little bit and you could get exploited. And you can get away with that live because people are afraid to bluff live, especially in the States where people are going to judge you. But in other parts of the world, you better be ready to gamble up and you better know what you're supposed to be defending.
100%. Well said.
Yeah. So you do think it's more common do you think it's less common in America for people to bluff than abroad? Just in
yeah, in America, it's almost like, oh, look at you trying, right? Like whenever you get caught bluffing, it's like, oh, look at you trying. I'm like, man, I just thought you fold. Whereas in like I've heard in Spain they clap you on the back. In Brazil, I had a guy hug me after I got caught bluffing. He was like, "Good man play, man," and I'm like, "What the hell? Like,
what is happening?"
Yeah, exactly. Which was fun. It's a different culture, and there's no social faux pas in Eastern Europe if you're running a bluff, right? But in America, it's kind of like, hey, man, look, this is. If you think about it, in the United States, we grow up playing cards. When you're 6 years old, you played cards with your dad. Yeah. In Europe, you play chess or something. So if you're into poker, you're really into poker in Europe, right? So it's okay to be running those bluffs and whatnot. But if you're sitting with your family and you start 3-betting their ass, they're not into that. And it's the same thing at the card room, right? Like, what are you doing, man? Just raise whatever you want to raise, call with whatever you want to call with. We'll all see the flop and we'll take it from there. And nobody feels bad about themselves.
Especially at the lower stakes, like when someone's opening so many hands or mad. They're like, "Oh, doing like this is so frustrating." It's hilarious.
And the answer is always, "I just want to gamble, man. I mean, come on, man. I don't want to talk. That's for the work day. I just wanted to play cards."
There you go. You want to hit him with the next question, Ryan?
Yeah. So you've gone by the screen name Assassinato, and I don't know if I'm butchering that.
Yeah, you got that. You got it. I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been doing this for a long time. I mean, this has been your tag pretty much forever. And what's the origin story behind that tag?
Man, it's so stupid. My father remarried in Brazil, and I want to say I heard that word when I was down there, but the older you get, the more you want to be accurate about everything. So you start thinking back on it and you go, I don't even know if that's true. So I want to say I heard that word or I saw it somewhere and I was like, Assassinato, that sounds cool. And so I named myself that when I was 18 years old, not really thinking this is going to be my profession. I've also heard that word means I killed myself in Italian or something. So like when people meet me, they're like, "Man, you're a weird dude." I'm like, I didn't think about that. Like if I could have it back, I would name myself something funny, like OMG Clay Aiken. I love that name. Something fun. But I mean, I guess the good thing about it is you guys can remember that name and perhaps you can't remember every screen name. And that has helped me a little bit.
That's really interesting too. Yeah, I mean, like Andrew Nemi, for instance, what his name on ACR is like Gramps or something, which
that's an awesome one. You should name yourself like Venetian Fan 1976 or something. You know what I mean? Just some like I'm totally not check raising without the joint. Something like that.
I always have it.
Yeah, right. My next question for you is, where does your current fulfillment come from in poker? Is it banking the big tournaments, or do you find a ton of fulfillment from writing books or coaching the thousands of students that you do?
Ooh, man, that's a good one. There's something pure about talking to a guy and giving him a skill he can use anywhere on earth. I love that. Like just really just talking with a guy and like, come on, think about it. And actually kind of pushing the guy I really like. Because that's real life. Poker can teach you about that. People are going to push you in poker and people are going to push you in real life. And if you can get to the point you can deal with all these big bets coming at you and people talking smack with you and you can still make money, you can handle a lot of other things in life. So I really do like that work, but it's really intense. So when I do get to play, and I try to play a couple times a week at the very least, at least always Sundays, because that's where I feel like I have a huge edge. And if you play one MTT session on Sunday, that's like 3 weekday sessions if you really go from dawn to dusk. So I always try to play at least then. And that's really my me time. I love grinding at my standing desk while my system is up loud and I got tons of tables going on. I mean, honestly, it's kind of dorky, but I still cheer here and like, fist pump and like pretend it's a knockout blow when I overbet and get people to call, it's like, I get into it, and truthfully, I love being tired deep in a live tournament and knowing I prepared for that moment. I love working out and going to play cards. This feels like a day off to me, not work. So that's really, I'd be lying to you if I told you the money didn't mean anything, but I do it for a lot less money than I make now. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to be successful, you have to have that mentality. And I think most of the people that I know who are successful in poker, they just loved competing. Like they've been competitors their whole life, whether it be in sports or whether it be in chess, Magic the Gathering, whatever it is. Like they're just competitors. And it's great that you have such a deep love for the game. And I think that'll lead to profits. Obviously, everyone likes money, but like that's not what it's about.
We all do. I love that piece that you said about how, like, as a coach, like you can give somebody that life skill that isn't just for poker. Like, you know, it's not just a poker skill to be able to deal with multiple variables at once. It's something you can carry over into any workspace that you're in. So I totally agree with you. That's one of those things. Like I was a rowing coach at one time, and that's like one of those things. Like it's a sport that puts you under a lot of stress. You know, you're in a race with 6 other boats and there's noise and there's things going on. So I totally get it. Like that is so cool to be able to provide that to someone, that skill that they can take with them.
Hell yeah. Rowing, that's like really intense, right? Because if one guy drops a little bit, it drags everybody down. Is that how it is?
I'm very short. I was the coxswain. So I was the guy in the back of the boat who was yelling at them to row the boat. And I got here. So best job in sports, you know. I'm 5'5" and I got to yell at people who are 6'5" and
that's taller. Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Great job. I love it. So my next question for you, you were extremely successful on websites such as Full Tilt back in the days before Black Friday. How did Black Friday impact your life as an online professional poker player? And where do you see the future of online poker now that things are loosening up with the Wire Act and such?
Yeah, honestly, I'd be lying to you if I told you Black Friday didn't mess me up, because I had to learn how to play poker again. I honestly struggled with it for years, and it was also stressful. I had just final tabled in F-Tops, and a bunch of my net worth was on that site. And it was stressful because that's just the way things go. You know, you have all these different sessions on different sites. You lose money on these different sites. Then you bank on one site and you cash out that money as fast as possible. Just the way it worked out was it happened right as all my money was on that site. So for years and years, that was in limbo. I had to learn how to play poker again. I honestly struggled with it for years. Before, I could just bully weak American players. Afterwards, I had to hire coaches and work harder. I became much more obsessed with finding good spots and smaller sites. So after that, I was on Lock Poker, Carbon, iPoker, all of that. I went back to cash some. I did play cash games before tournaments, just like 1-2 and 2-4, but I had to do that a little bit more. But I've been loving poker since the pandemic. The stimulus money has been great. I just won the $250K on America's Card Room, and I felt like there was a lot of recreational players in that. I felt like I had to play really solid poker and very patient poker, and that is a skill, but I didn't have to like go out of my mind at any point and try something really above the rim. I had a lot of time to let recreational players make their mistakes. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been nuts, especially just the blow up, whether it be like on these apps, like the Poker Bros, the PPs, the X Pokers, like the action, not even with these sites or these clubs rake screwing you, you can still make insane amounts. Like it's nuts.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, and I was in New York, man, during all of this 2020. Like the underground scene there was still popping off. You would have thought nothing was happening, and it was it was something else, man. It's been, it's just something. You got to always be ready because you never know when it's going to go nuts. And I think a lot of people just got their stimulus money and just said, you know what, it's time to gamble.
Spin it up.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. It's time to ride. It's been crazy.
It's money they didn't expect to have. They're free. They're just free rolling everything.
It's free money. Well, if they do that bargaining, like if I lose 1,000, I still got $400. I don't need more than $400, and it just goes right. And if 1,000 people get that genius idea, there's a lot more money in the ecosystem at that point.
Yeah,
great. So you're saying that we're now starting to go. Not that we're ever going to get back to the Full Tilt pre-Black Friday days, but more recreational players than regs than we're used to.
It's been awesome because, I'll be honest with you. I didn't think about this till just now, but with all my friends outside of poker, the hardest part about getting them to play online was getting them to put money on the site. Because back in the day, it was like, okay, you're going to take your credit card You're going to let some stranger charge $5,000 to it. You're going to call your bank and talk to them that, yes, I did buy sports equipment in China. That's what that's for. It sounds like the sketchiest thing on earth, but now everybody's used to crypto because everybody and their grandmother knows everything about crypto and you can't tell them anything. So everybody's got crypto. Well, if you tell someone, hey, you already got some crypto, you want to put a couple hundred down on this site, gamble up a little bit. Well, a lot of people are going to do that because you already got them past the hardest part. Yeah, exactly. The hardest part was putting money online. Now it's not that far away.
Right.
Yeah. It's just not stressful and people trust the security of their money more. And, well, I mean, again, it depends. You have to be careful. We've talked about this on a few podcasts. But there's a lot of scammers out there. And,
hell yeah!
you just got to be careful with these apps.
yeah, you gotta know what's up. Well, and that always goes to only deposit money you can afford to lose. And like the second you get a score, just like cash it out as fast as possible.
Yeah.
You know, I had 50,000 off that ACR score, and I was just like, get it off, go quick. You know what I mean?
In Coinbase.
Yeah, exactly. Get it moving. You know, pay your taxes. Don't deal with that. That's way more paperwork if you don't get on that. Just do the right thing. Move on it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people don't.
No, that's right.
For you is pretty segued easily based on the conversation. But as people are gearing up for the World Series of Poker, how large of an attendance do you think we'll have this year? Do you think we'll set the record for the largest main? Is there a specific event or events you specifically are excited for? How are you feeling?
I have zero idea what's going to happen at this WSOP, but the money is loose online, so I wouldn't be surprised if we got some big prize pools. But then again, I don't know about travel restrictions. Are there still a lot of countries that can't come to the United States? And if that's true, what percentage of the fields was that before? I don't know the answer to that. And furthermore, maybe the fields won't be as big. But I don't want to play with any kid from Belarus. I'd much rather play with, I'd much rather play with Roy the postman. So maybe I don't need a big, field. I'm looking forward to, now that I think of it, the small buy-ins, because I think they will get so many people playing for fun. And honestly, I think it was Antonio Esfandiari said, do you want to have fun when you go to work or not have fun? And a lot of people want to have fun in a $500 tournament. So that's a good time.
It's crazy how much these guarantees bring in people too.
Hell yeah.
For example, the 3,500 main in Hollywood, I thought was incredibly soft, incredibly.
Yeah.
And then I played an 1,100 that had no guarantee on it in Tampa, and it was the hardest. It was the hardest tournament I have ever played in my life. Yeah. I was like, every single player at the table is good. Like, what is this?
Yeah, and a lot of that is the table draw. A lot of that is just people want to say they played the main event. I played the 3,500 in Tampa, and I had two guys right off the bayou that we couldn't understand a damn word they said, but they were, they were actually really nice, and they actually were like, nobody watches boxing, but like Sean Porter, if you watch boxing, just punch after punch after punch, maybe not as much finesse as they should have, but yeah, I think because the guarantee was a little lower on that one, I had to deal with more ringers, and there was a kid to my left. Maybe I'd seen him, but there was a bunch of guys I was playing with where I went like, man, this guy can play, and I got to play really tight aggressive that day. But yeah, if you get those big guarantees, I don't know where the hell everybody got $3,500, but God bless them.
Yeah, really. That's the immortal question. Where did these people get $3,500 of cash? Just
not from poker, not from grinding poker.
you guys weren't around when the initial poker boom happened. We used to ask, where the hell did everybody get $10,000? Because you would go to these $10,000 events and be like, there's no way this guy, there would be guys playing Omaha and trying to play 3 cars and stuff like that. It was that nutty back then. And that just shows how much money's in this country.
Jesus, that's a crazy one.
God bless America.
God bless America, baby.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
question for you, Brad?
Yes. So you've written multiple poker strategy books, like we've talked about. You've created coaching sites and continue to partner with people like Jonathan Little for pokercoaching.com content. One of the questions that Bryce and I get really often in like DMs on Instagram and stuff is, where do people get started? What sort of content would you recommend for people who are newer to the game and people who maybe are more experienced in terms of volume but haven't spent the time in the lab?
I would say I would give pretty similar advice to a lot of people, which is I would start with depositing some money you're willing to lose for your education. The financial aspect scares a lot of people, which is when we're losing money, that operates different circuitry in our brains than if we were just playing Monopoly, we'd go balls to the wall. But for some damn reason, when there's $4.40 on it, we all get chicken ass, right? And I would say just put $200 down, expect it to be gone. You've lost $200 before and play $3 tournaments, $5 tournaments, $10 micro stakes, play really low buy-in cash and just expect to lose it and give yourself challenges. Try to 3-bet or fold one day, our only cold call on the button. Play very few tables and talk to yourself while you play. Ask yourself why you're doing everything. If you're betting for value, ask yourself, is he going to call this bet with this, or that hand? If I'm bluffing, is he going to fold that, or that hand to this bet? You will be amazed how much you autopilot and give away money if you just do that. Do this for a time and you'll get more comfortable. And of course, sign up at pokerheadrush.com. And literally almost every day I put out a quiz that will test you on that for free. Those are the fundamentals.
There you go.
Yeah, that was a pretty slick plug. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. I think coaching has absolutely helped me just think about stuff because I'm thinking about how I would explain a situation to a student, and I'm always not 1,000,000% thinking through that spot exactly. I mean, obviously, I've been on autopilot to the point where I'm like, oh, I've been in this spot 1,000,000 times. I know what to do. I know what percentage of the time I should be doing whatever. But then just talking to yourself and thinking about how you'd explain the situation to someone else just makes it that much easier. And I think that's just been infinitely helpful for me personally.
Oh, definitely. What's that phrase? When one teaches to learn, I think was the phrase. There's a lot of times I was talking, who are the best people to coach? People who don't know anything about poker because they're not embarrassed about anything. One time I saw a guy, what was it? The board came ace 4-7 and the guy had ace queen. And somebody c-bet into him and he just called. And the kid was like, you have a great hand. What the hell are you doing? I'm like, you're absolutely right. You should raise with that hand some percentage of the time. But most people do it 0% of the time. And if you don't have people asking you those questions, it's just not going to open your mind because it's something like doctors have to take exams every 5 years to freshen up, or if you're in a choir every 5 years, they got to check you again because when you autopilot, you don't get better. A lot of times you get worse. You drive on the highway a lot of the times with people who have 10,000 hours of driving and they can't operate a turn signal. You know what I mean? So just putting in the hours doesn't do it.
Facts.
That's a really good analogy.
Thank you. I've used that one way too much.
You recycle analogies? I thought this was an exclusive interview.
I'm sorry, bro. It's one of those things. If you put me on the spot, I'm gonna have to go with a default. But everyone
default, exactly.
You're on autopilot. You're on autopilot. Come on.
Facts. I should have come up with something else. I thought the choir was clever. I was like, no one's reaching for this.
No one's That was a good one. Yeah. So our last question for you is, as an author of multiple poker strategy books, what do you see as the most important piece of tournament and or cash game strategy that people may not have heard before?
That's a really good one. I think someone what really inflated my win rate was falling in love with overbetting. Finding times a recreational player or reg who is not focusing is just going to call an overbet has changed everything for me. If a board is ace high and you think a guy has an ace and you're playing a $50 MTT, you should really think about overbetting. And in live tournaments, satellite winners get married to hands and don't see how big bets are when they have a bunch of chips to start. When I was playing at WPT Tampa, there was this ringer I hadn't really seen play much before, but he was so good at knowing, okay, this satellite winner has kings, queens, or jacks, and he doesn't want to fold. And the craziest thing was there was an ace on the board and he would bet 2.2x pot and he would know this guy wasn't going to fold and the guy was out. And I was like, how did you do that? That is on another level I've never seen. So of course he's got this big old stack. So once I get to deal with him, I've got a lot of problems because he can 3-bet me and put my chips at risk. He can double barrel. He can check raise. He can do a lot of things with these chips that ICM wise aren't worth as much, while my chips on a shorter stack are worth much, much more. So to put yourself in those positions, you got to show up early. You got to see who is really worried about somebody pushing them around, and when they have too many chips, make sure you deprive them of some of them.
Absolutely.
That's a great piece of advice. Yeah, thank you for pulling that one out.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I read about, I haven't personally had the opportunity to take your course, but I was just reading some of the things you specialize in, and I think ICM specific is probably the part of my game that is the weakest, and knowing in which scenarios I can take spots. Because if I'm playing a cash game, like I'd say I'm incredibly comfortable. Like you can't. I mean, if you bust, reload, yeah, whatever.
Right.
But in a tournament, when you're playing for a ton of money, especially late, deep, like top 3-4%, like knowing which spots to take. Like, okay, I've got ace queen and the cutoff open, and I'm in the small blind. How aggressively do I play this?
Right.
Yeah, just knowing those spots is probably biggest thing I personally need to work on.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. I've been working on it too, and my buddies are way better at that. And we've been teaching courses on them at pokerheadrush.com if you want to check it out. But we've been teaching courses on them, and sometimes they'll go, "This is a fold here, Alex." And I'm like, really? Really? Oh, man. And I'm like, if I don't know that, a lot of people don't know that. And I've been working really hard, and I still feel like a child with it some of the time. So it's a multi-table satellite. Here's the one to get really good at. Multi-table satellites. A lot of people, if you pay attention to that, people botch that one a lot. People make a lot of mistakes in those. And when it comes to tournaments, a lot of people don't look at the payout structures, which is if they're paying everybody, like if they're paying most of the field or a lot of the field, your job is to min cash, because 292nd and 36 are going to pay more or less the same, or it's going to be 40% more. Yeah. So your first job is to min cash. Then your next part is to get rich or die trying.
Well said. Yeah, once you hit it, get rich or die trying.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
That wraps up our interview for today. Thank you so much for coming on, Alex. We will link your course in the description. He has amazing reviews and can absolutely transform your game. So make sure to hit him up and check out his website. I am excited to see you in a few months out for the World Series. I'll buy you a drink, and excited to meet you in person.
Thank you guys for having me. It was so good. You guys take care, okay?
Yeah, thank you so much. You have a good one, Alex.
Take care.
This episode has been absolutely fantastic. Holy crap.
No, absolutely.
All 10 of you who are in chat right now bulling with us. I've seen the chat freaking flying down.
No, it's been fun, and I absolutely love interacting with you guys and dissecting the hands, because these spots aren't obvious, especially when these spots occur at different stakes. Like if this spot occurred in a 1-2, 1-3 game, I am literally snap folding this river so quickly it's not even funny. But when we're playing at these higher stakes with these people who have higher level thinkings and know what we should be doing in the majority of times on different streets, then we can reevaluate and find these calls in these situations that other times would just be such a fold.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I am down to throw a tourney.
Tourney? Ooh,
I say once we hit 500 subs, let's give away like $200-300. Let's do it, babe.
Yeah, 100%. That sounds like a good time.
Good idea, Ben. But anyways, there's going to be a great game tonight at 8:30 for those of you still listening. And Clark Poker will probably be joining us. I don't know if he'll be joining us for the Zoom. It looks like he's punting at Magic City. There will be a Zoom call come through. There's going to be 51, 1-2, even a PLO game running. So if you guys like that, if you guys want to interact with us on Zoom, hit me up. Cannot wait. Thank you again for tuning in. We are excited for episodes coming up. We are still trying to get Patrick Antonius on the schedule, but it looks like that will happen eventually.
It is. We're working it out.
In the meantime, thank you again for tuning in. We will see you guys next week, and we'll see some of you tonight. Have a good night.